about.
Week 3. So welcome everybody again.
Yeah, welcome to you.
I'm not sure if Reverend Rosemary is going to join us because I know that she had a meditation that she was thinking about doing, and she
That's
was
right.
and
That's
she was going to bring in because she was doing the mysteries of Genesis. Did you know Dr. Maya if she's going to come today?
Yeah, I talked with her that I was asking if she would come on and go do a deep dive, a short deep dive on 0 and 1
Okay.
as a base for understanding more deeper non-duality. So she said she would. So I'm calling her now. So go ahead, Debbie. Do your
I'll go ahead anyway, and because I have a couple of recordings that are quite good. So week 3. So this is the last week of the involution process. Next week we go into the evolution. And week 3 is God created dry land, plants, and trees. This third step is the forming of this substance into tangibility. Let the dry land appear. Out of the omnipresent substance, your mind forms whatever it wants by the power of imagination. And that's by Paul Hasselbeck with the heart-centered metaphysics. The affirmation for the week is let the vision appear, let the plan emerge. And this particular week, so last week was mainly about the thoughts. So this is where we got into the yes and the no, and it was more using your mind to say what do you want to bring into your life and what do you want to say this doesn't fit anymore. That's where we got into the 0 and 1 discussion. I do have a couple of recordings from Marvin, and he goes into this with regards to a little bit of a reference to last week, but then this week is mainly about feelings. So, and it's actually, I love this week. Well, I love all of the weeks, but this is a great week because you get to use the power of the imagination. There's a lot of creativity that can happen this week, and he explains it sort of how the thoughts and the feelings relate to the divine idea appearing. So this is sort of to bring the two together, and so it's a very playful week. But before I go any further,
excuse me, Debbie, if you would just repeat the affirmation again, please.
Sure.
Thanks.
It is let the vision appear, let the plan emerge. And I'll send you this in the notes as well. And if I ever miss anybody, please send me an email and let me know if I don't get the notes to you. Okay. So before I start, I have 2 recordings from Reverend Marvin Anderson, and it's in 2 parts. It's quite old, but I listened to week 3 a couple of times, and to find little snippets that he says is quite something. He meanders, so he's about to say something, and he'll meander into a story, and it's like, oh, that's really good, but it come back. So I found 2 that I really liked. So I can start playing them, and then we can, if Reverend Rosemary comes, we can hand it over to her, and if not, we can have a discussion about these 2 recordings. So I'll do it in 2 parts. All right.
In other words, the money will come, the expertise will come, the help will come, the information will come. Everything you need will come if you get the idea, not just a thought and not just a feeling. but get these two things together and create focused desire out of which the divine idea can grow and emerge. The tree that we're going to try to grow this week, okay, out of these categories of practical things: healing, relationships, and prosperity. Okay? So we talked last week. Oh, no, first I want to get on with the category, the threefold test. Okay, let's go back to that. You've heard this before, so I won't time on it. The threefold test of a vision in unity is this: it has to have three lines of work. One for yourself. Yes, that's these things, okay? Your practical projects, health, prosperity, and relationships, and anything else that you have on that level. The second line of work has to do with other people. It has to help other people. There has to have a horizontal dimension to it. In other words, you need to hook up with other people. Partly we do that here through developing a prayer consciousness. That's what the Wednesday night prayer and meditation group that Catherine runs is about. It's about building group consciousness, not sharing and caring, but building silent unity, which is where the power is. See, building up a reservoir on a horizontal plane, which then the individual consciousness can tap into to empower your vision when you come up with a vision. But the third part of it is, in addition to for yourself and for other people, is it must have a dimension of meeting the needs of the universe. And see, this is what Gene Houston was trying to explain to old, what's his name? Give.
We cannot hear you.
Yeah, that's where the recording. So I'm going to start the second recording because the tape gets really choppy after that. So I wanted to just bring that part in because I thought that was really, really interesting how he talked about your project being the threefold test about the self, other people, and then the universe. I thought that was a great part. Now I just have to line up the second part. I know where to start.
The imagination sees the completed event, condition, or form, and then that mental image acts as a magnet for the slower moving knowledge. That's what we need to set up this week, or you're not going to have anything to demonstrate starting the following week. That's why it's important to have that imagination is more important than knowledge at this stage. That's why it's important to begin to work with your imagination this week and try to get down to real thoughts and feelings and see if something can grow out of it. Now, I am over time, but I'm just going to take a few more minutes to give you some practical instructions about this, okay? Just another, maybe 4 minutes or something. How does it work? And I could spend an hour on this too, but I'm going to read you a quote that, and if you, and I'm not going to explain it, I'm just going to read it to you. And this is one of the best descriptions I have found about scientific proof of the creative power of visualization. And this is from the book, The Holographic Universe, very common book a few years ago. Michael Talbot was the author, The Holographic Universe. I normally don't do this because I think it's probably trying to prove metaphysical things by scientific proofs is probably equal to trying to explain mysticism to Larry King, okay? But here's an explanation that I will read very quickly. It's about the holographic brain, the holographic universe. The theory is this. Here's what happens. I want to emphasize this because you need to know that something really happens when you use the imagination. It's not just fantasizing, okay? It's a critical stage in the creative process, and it's where the creation really comes to life. See, something real happens here. The law of electromagnetic energy states that whenever an electrical force field is generated, a magnetic or attractive force is created. This force field consists of electromagnetic wave forms, which are the basic components of matter, beyond atomic particles. Another term for this, and now we're getting into how imagination works, is psychic energy. Attention, focused visual attention, combining thoughts and feelings. That's what it is. And this is what is created by the imagination. It's a force field, okay? Literally, and it's something real. It's simply invisible, that's all, but so is everything in the subatomic levels of matter. So just because it's invisible doesn't mean it's not real. So your assignment this week is to create something real. It's only invisible in the inner world, but it will become real to you and it will become visible to you through the use of the imagination. How do you do it? That's one thing. Now, what exactly is it that you should do this week to do this? Here's what Fillmore says about this stage. Get definite about your plan. Before you can realize the mighty power of ideas, you must unify them. All must pull together. Get your ideas in divine order, and a mighty mind force will begin to work for you right away. This divine order is, in fact, the kingdom of heaven, so often referred to by Jesus. In order to attain this unity and harmony of mind, it is necessary to have perfect statements of truth and to adhere to them in thought, word, and deed. Your assignment this week, then, is create. Make something on paper with your hands, art, okay? Make things three-dimensional or at least two-dimensional. Art, draw, paint, make pictures, make treasure maps, you know, in the old aids to visualization. Anything to help make it concrete, to create a force field. That's what you're doing this week. Play. Use your hands. Carl Jung said famously that your hands can solve problems that your mind can't solve. Put things in on a table where you can play with them. Pictures, art supplies, drawings, lists. Take all stuff you've collected up till now.
That's it.
There's no more?
No, because the tape goes all fuzzy after that and choppy.
No.
So those were the two parts, and I thought they were good because the first he talks about it being the threefold: yourself, others, and the universe. And this part, he also, and as I listened even to other parts of the tape, he really talked about week 2 being your thoughts, what we talked about last week, and the yes and the no. But this week is more about the feelings, and to get in touch with feelings. This is where I liked how he talked about the practical application of doing vision boards, of doing art, doing things that are tangible. And he described it as then by bringing the two together, then the third emerges. This is why it goes in line with the affirmation, is that the divine idea. So it's through the thoughts and the feelings that then the divine idea emerges. I also think that from this is why it's really important to go 1 week at a time. So last week we did, you're sorting things out, you're looking at your books and your fridge and your clothes and whatnot, and just from that, making those decisions, it clarifies what you're bringing into your life. Almost, Marjorie, like what you said in your meditation, which was so beautiful again, was you're inhaling what you want, your health, prosperity, relationships, and you're exhaling, what you don't want, the disease, the resentment, the things that are no longer serving you in your life. It was a beautiful, beautiful metaphor, the way that was. And for me, as I was doing that, I could just feel, that releasing and that letting go, which is the no, and the bringing in, the yeses. So I thought that was a great, once again, Margaret, a great segue into this process. So week 3, and I thought that this was so nice too, because it brings the 12 powers, and the one I love the most is the imagination. I love the creativity of doing, like, I love doing vision boards. And I think the one thing, and this happens over and over again, everything that I read or listen to with manifestation, it is to act as if it already exists, act as if it already happens. And that is such an interesting mindset to get into, because a lot of people will say, well, how can I act as if I have perfect health? Or how can I act as if I have enough money to pay my bills? And it's almost like a bit of you can psych yourself out by having that sort of mental argument with yourself. But if you can get into the feeling, and this is the week of feelings, if you can get into the feeling of acting, what would it feel like if I had this, if I had the health that I desire, if I had enough money and prosperity to basically say, I'm not worried, what would that feel like? And that is so powerful. And that's where the power of imagination really comes through. Again, with relationships, if there's a relationship, well, I don't have a good relationship with somebody that I really care about, I'm not getting along with, a family member or a friend. Well, what would that, just imagine what it would look like if it was healed, if it was better, how would I be in that relationship? And so that's where the power of imagination is so powerful. I love it. And I would go around, actually, myself and one of my ex-boyfriends, we really got into the creative process, and we would go around and we would take pictures. It was like, well, what about if we lived in this area, where there's lots of nature and everything? And I would draw things. And even where I live right now, it was like, I want to be really close to nature. And I am. I'm really close to the water. I'm really close to a lot of forests and trees. I even visualized Dolly. I said, I want a little dog because there's so many restrictions on big dogs. And I want her to be part golden retriever because I've always had golden retrievers. So, and I even knew her name before I had her. So I was really envisioning having my little dog in this little place, which I have a little place and I decorated it. So I find it so much fun. Just that visioning and pretending and imagining and then seeing how it comes to fruition. And I love how he says as well that the bringing the two together, the thoughts and the feelings, then the divine idea emerges from that. Did you want to say? Yeah, anybody, open it up. Yes, talk.
I was wondering, I'm looking at my little altar, and I have been going through this. I think I mentioned it in a couple of our meditation times, of connecting to the various young Mayas. And to help me do that, I have up on my fireplace has like a little altar, and on top, and it's not an altar, it's just a shelf. And there are pictures of me. And then I made sort of a vision board, right? But I made it related to something I wanted to revisit and to heal. But in order for me to be able to do it, I had to get pictures up there, visualization. And then I came upon who were the people who were kind to me when I was that age. Huh? And I got a couple of the old ladies up there. And I was just wondering if you have something like that, a vision board or a treasure mapping. Maybe we could share it next week with each other. I mean, to have the others see our creativity at work, our imagination at work. Anyway, that's it. Thank you.
I think that would be a lovely idea because this is the week to actually do that. Is to actually create. And I know last week, I was painting my ceiling. Oh, and I was like, oh my God, my neck is killing me. I don't like this. I don't want to do this. And I was trying to think about, well, what is it about this? So even doing something that I didn't want to be doing, it was still clarifying some things that I did want. And it gave me the opportunity because there's not much else you can do other than listen to things as you're painting the ceiling and trying to protect your neck. You know, that's really positive for me. But it did give me the opportunity to listen to Marvin quite a lot, which I love to do. But this week, yeah, it is about using your hands and creating that vision board. So I'm going to do that this week, and I would love to share it. But if anybody else would like to share as well next week, that would be great. Does anybody else have anything that they'd like to talk about from last week with the yeses and the nos, or any questions about the week coming up?
I'd like to say that I always get hung up, and I don't know how many times I've experienced this on the threefold task. And in some instances, like when you talked about visualizing your dog, and I know that she's a therapy dog, then I can see how that helps other people. But some of the other things, like health, for example, I mean, I get hung up on the fact that Marvin always made it so broad that it has to help the universe and be like life-changing and universe-changing, that I always feel intimidated.
You mean you're asking yourself, how can this item that's very personal and very private, how can this actually reverberate in the universe or somebody across the planet?
One thing that I was listening to a while back, because I know exactly what you're talking about, Gloria, because it can seem quite intimidating as like, oh my God, the universe. But I heard somebody speak and they were saying, say, for example, you have a hair salon and when people come in, you're very present with them. You're not distracted with other things. That people come in and they enjoy it, just like Dolly. When I bring Dolly out, I don't have my phone or whatever, and it's something that I wanted to do for many years before, and I've done it. She's my fifth dog, but it's important for me to be present, and in that way, it is good for other people who really want to experience her. And then if that gives somebody a good day and a good feeling, they feel good, then that they can extend that to other people. And that's my interpretation of giving to others, which then hopefully adds some nicer things to the universe. Yeah.
And I mean, I guess I can see that if one improves their own health, then they can be of more service to all the people around them.
That's right.
Yeah. And if you have more money and resources, then you can share more.
Yeah.
And even if, because I've had times in my life where I have not had enough money, I've been very stressed out, and I know that, so prosperity was important. And from a monetary point of view, as a single mom, and I knew that I was a better mom if I wasn't continually worried, like, how am I going to pay the rent? And how am I going to do this? And how am I going to do that? So, yeah, I think that if it comes to yourself, and that's why I feel that it's threefold. If you're in a good state, emotionally, physically, health-wise, prosperous-wise, then you can give. But if you don't have anything to give because you're struggling so much, then how can you possibly then give to somebody else? and the universe. It would be pretty difficult, although some people do, for
Yeah.
sure. Yeah.
And of course, he was saying, when you're using an example about money, when you didn't have enough money,
Mhm.
he would then bring in that idea, act as if you
Act as if.
are.
Well, isn't that the time when you are supposed to give? When it's important to give? Is when you feel you don't have enough?
The flow, yeah.
I just want to share something that also, when I was in a very difficult financial situation years ago, with a single mother, 2 kids, and bills coming in, and I think I got this from something I read by Catherine Ponder. I
Yes.
believe I remember that. And I used, as my bills came in, I would write on the envelopes, I bless these bills.
Hmm.
So it's important to remember to bless them,
Mhm.
for all the services that you were, paying for. And it really does,
Hmm.
it really does work. That's all I can say.
Yeah, it puts you in a different place in your mind. My goodness.
Yeah.
Oh,
Yeah.
yeah.
I love that. I love that.
Actually,
It's almost like it gives you different energy. Go ahead, Gloria.
my first contact with Unity ever was a workshop that I attended on prosperity.
Hmm.
And we were told at that time to write in your check register. Well, nobody has check registers anymore, but
Excuse me.
to write at the top every time, there is enough and more than enough.
Hmm.
God is my source.
Yay.
And the whole time that I used a check register, I would write that.
Right.
That is so great. That is so
It
great.
stayed with you. I mean, Gloria, you still remember this, right? It
Yeah.
was
Yeah.
right. It really made a big impression on
Mhm.
your
Mhm.
path.
Yeah.
Well, even what Marjorie said last week in last week's meditation, talking about Viktor Frankl. Just amazing. The story that really got me there was that when they were in the concentration camps, they would be working and they would be talking about a meal that they would have. And I don't know if I said this last week, but they would be talking about having wine and having food and people around. And he mentioned in the book, and it really, really got to me, because he said, you wouldn't think that people who were starving to death, who were, cold and freezing and working, and they were worried about their families, would actually engage in this type of activity. And he said, but it was those people who actually survived,
Yeah.
and it gave them hope. And so if there was ever an act as if it has already happened, it was in
Yeah.
that just moved me. And he was still working. He was working, I think he had his manuscript taken away from him when he was working at the logotherapy. And he still went forward because his whole thing, it was in his mind,
Hmm.
and he knew what he was doing.
Yeah.
Yeah. And his relationship to his granddaughter, which was one of the reasons he stayed alive. He wanted to stay alive for her.
Mhm.
To this day, the word or the name Viktor Frankl still resonates in a lot of Unity folks. They can relate to what, there's something that moves along the stream of consciousness that is Unity and Viktor Frankl with his logotherapy. Yeah. Even to this day, right?
Even to this day. Yeah, I saw Jimmy Fallon. This was a few years back. He had hurt his finger, he's in hospital, and he actually read Man's Search for Meaning, and he said through that book he realized that he was doing what he needed to do, which was his comedy and his talk show and everything else. And it was like, yes, there it is. It's still coming all the time.
Mm.
Mhm.
So pick
I love your idea, Dr. Maya, about bringing things forward for next week. I'm still clarifying. I'm still clarifying my 3 areas. And this is the week to start to do it, because then the next week, after the 4th week is the real, it's the evolution. So we're finishing up with the involution this week. Still in there, still doing the creative, it's in the mind, let the vision appear. And then the next week it is actually to do the actual physical steps in the manifestation.
And maybe this will also be, I'm thinking back to what Gloria was bringing up, where I have my little, treasure map about my own life or my own healing processes or whatever. But then how does that resonate with the rest of the world? Or how does that reach out across the planet and so on? And then I'm thinking, well, what we read is that, I heard him say, I heard Marvin say, it doesn't have to be visible. It's in the invisible. And so if I'm willing to say, and this and something better, or this and whatever I'm treasure mapping here, I'm willing, to put it into the service of the larger. I don't see it. I don't know how I can be, I'm not going to have a, whatever, but I'm willing to have it reverberate out into the world. I'm willing to have my treasure map in the invisible realm reverberate out and be of service.
Yes.
Didn't he say?
Yes, because sorry,
Go
because
ahead.
it does, like exactly what you just said. It's not always visible. And I think the key is to trust that no matter what, your action has an effect. It ripples out to the world, even though, like you just said, it's not immediately visible to you.
Yeah.
And in there, I still think lies the power of imagination, because, I think he even said, it's not fantasy. Imagination is a power.
Mm-hmm.
And when I work consciously with the power of imagination, visualizing, embodying it, whatever, however I want to do that, working with that imagination, it's not just a little hot air balloon. It really, it has a reverberation that I cannot see. I cannot even understand, but it does. It's a power of our. So I think I need to also update, where do I really stand with this power of imagination? Kind of air out, that it is so much more than fantasy. It is, it operates on the atomic level, it operates on the wave level, who are way beyond me. And therefore it's a good idea to make a treasure map, or to make something that I really would like to see happen in my life. Really like to see, where I could have some passion about it, or some longing for it. And then just know that if I use these principles that we are visiting here, that it's, what is that thing that you use to make bread? That little
Yeast.
Yes.
Sourdough, yeah. Mhm.
East.
And then it's not my ego. It's not like, oh, I want to be more like this with my neighbor, for example. I want to have a better relationship with my neighbor. And then I'm thinking, well, how does this resonate out into the world? And I'm not political at this point, and I don't want to be, and whoa, whoa, whoa. And then just step back and say, let the yeast of this exercise have its own life, right? I don't need to know how it's going to go out.
Mhm.
Even sometimes people will say, I remember years ago, I used to listen to these things on the subconscious mind. And they said, there's this man and he was saying, it's like you need to give it to your subconscious mind and then let it go. Not try to figure it out. It's almost in the figuring out that you're not allowing it to happen. And I think that even with Marjorie, how you talked about that with the letting go and letting it happen and getting out of the way. But even Dr. Maya, what you were saying, I mean, this is on the atomic level. That's basically quantum physics. The power of your mind, it's energy, and it is real. So it is very, very powerful. And even I'm thinking about the butterfly effect. All of these things, they can seem so small and little, and you can't see them and you can't detect them, but yet they are there and they are very, very powerful.
And it's this, I do the exercise, I visualize, I put it in even allow my body to feel having it, and then I do this with it. I let it go, right? I don't know what form it will take. This or something, I always say this or something better, right? I let it take its form that it has for the highest good, right? And then I don't have to worry about how large my circle will be on a global level or on a political level, or because in it is also this, and now let it go, now surrender it, right?
And there's real freedom with that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Oh, good.
I don't know if anybody ever listened to Shakti Goen. I can't say her last name. She used to do a visualization of a pink bubble. And I used to do it with my daughter. And so if there was any worries that we had, we put them in the pink bubble, and the pink represented love. And then you put it all in the pink bubble and you'd send it off. And just like you said just a minute ago, you let it go into the universe, and it will come back to you in whatever form it's supposed to come. And it would give such a sense of peace. And the whole idea of let it go and something will come back in the form that it should, and something will come back probably much better than you ever imagined. Yeah.
Yeah, there is the element of I can visualize, I can create the whole scenario of how I want it, but then the way it comes might be a very different form.
Yeah.
And that step of, oh, I visualized this, but I didn't get it. Well, did it come through the back door, right? Did it come on another level? And that, maybe we talk about that next week. I don't know if he gets into that, is to this letting this or something better.
If there's something better. I'm just peeking ahead here now. I'm not going to say anything.
But okay. I need to go. Unfortunately, I got in 2 minutes, I got a phone call. So I'm going, if it's okay, will you sign us out then, Debbie, or just close the room?
Sure.
Okay.
I will.
Shall I stop the recording now, or shall I wait till you?
Well, we're basically, it's 9:55 for me, but does anybody else have anything else they want to talk about or share? I can definitely stay on.
I gotta go too, unfortunately.
Yeah, I'm good.
Okay.
I'm
Okay.
good. I'm
Well,
good.
we can sign out. So thank you, everybody, again.
Thank you.
Okay.
Thank
Thanks.
you. Bye,
Thank
everyone.
you.
Thanks.
Bye.
Bye.
Bye-bye.
I'm
Bye.
also
Bye.
gonna say I will not be here next week. I will be flying across the country.
Oh,
Woohoo.
that's great.
Bless you.
Lovely.
Yep.
Uh,
Safe
I'll be at a
travels.
medical appointment, so